This episode of the Beyond the Physics podcast is brought to you by you. So if you'd like to support the podcast, please check out patreon.com/Beyond the Physics. All right, welcome everyone to Beyond the Physics. This is Joseph Guzman. So I'm just giving you a brief introduction before I drop you into tonight's episode. Today we have a good friend of the podcast, Juan, coming on today, and we interviewed him some 3 years ago, and he is a part of the illustrious Eigenbros podcast, commonly found on YouTube. And so in today's interview, we cover many topics, basically catching up on what's been going on for Juan the past 3 years. One of the first things we talk about is how Eigenbros could be changing its format in the near term. Also, we talk about how Juan left the graduate school program and what's happened since then. Basically, the experience of applying to other graduate schools, finding work at Uber Eats and the post office, and now eventually perhaps this new chapter working at a national lab. So there's a lot of ground that we cover today. If any of that sounds interesting, please stick around. We're changing some small things about the format of the podcast. You could feel free to leave your feedback on how you feel today's podcast went. So of course, check out Juan at the Eigenbros. Links will be provided in the episode show notes. And yeah, let's get into it. This is Beyond the Physics.
Hello.
Yep. Hey.
It's me. I'm a returning guest. No, but yeah, where did we leave off on? I forgot. Not the stuff we just talked about, but the conversation about grad school.
I don't know. Something about the quals, right?
The quals? Oh yeah, the restructuring the qualifying exams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, from the last time that we talked to you, what was that even? What did we talk about back then? When was that? What year was that?
That was in the summer of last year.
It was before
But it was very
COVID.
casual. It wasn't recorded. No.
Oh, the last recording we have, of you.
Oh yeah, it was before COVID.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like 2018 maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Because the last time I came here was last year, but we didn't record anything. We just hung out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then but then this is a recorded episode.
Yeah.
So technically, the audience will be hearing me from 2018.
Yeah. So 3 years later, a lot has changed,
right.
I'm sure.
Oh
Yeah.
a lot has changed.
Yeah, it's been a long ass time.
Oh,
and
shit.
For the record, your episode is one of our best performing. I mean, it's I don't know if that's
Thanks. I think I did share it with a couple people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't know if it's shared around, but
Yeah. So our numbers aren't as impressive as yours nowadays, but
I mean, I don't know. We're kind of tailing off the Eigenbros.
Yeah.
I think the ship is sailing for that.
Okay.
This is a conversation we're gonna have right now.
you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
I'm
Me and
curious
Terrence just talked about it. So if you're a fan of the Eigenbros and you already listened to this, probably post our us announcing a hiatus. But essentially, the show is changing. So it's like Terrence is probably gonna take a job in New York, in Corning.
What?
Yeah. And then
Where?
I'm moving to Washington.
Wait, where is he going in New York?
Rochester, I think.
To do what?
To do like optics.
Optics.
Yeah, he's gonna work in an optics lab. He's gonna try to move up to research and development, but I think he's being hired as a tech first, or he would be. He thinks he's not gonna get it, but I'm like, you're gonna get it, dude. They seem to be like on him, like, dude, this guy's perfect candidate or whatever. So.
What lab is this?
It's in Corning, so I don't know how to. What the hell was that? Sorry, let me put everything on silence. It's just a optics lab, I guess, in a wing from Corning.
Oh,
Corning
okay.
Labs. Yeah.
Okay.
CORNING. headquartered in Corning, New York, by the way.
Okay.
It's one of those places. But he's going to work out in a branch in Rochester, which is super cool. And then they're going to give him like a sign-on bonus or something, $10,000. I'm like, damn it. I'm like, maybe I should have gone private. There's no like crazy background checks or whatnot. So it's like, I don't know. As opposed to me, I'm going to be moving to Washington officially starting mid-April or so, or like my official start date's like May 2nd or something like that. So yeah, it's gonna be big. Projects, I think they had me on 2 projects. I had interviews January of this year, and the way it worked out was I had COVID during my interview. So it was bad because I was literally day 7 of COVID. I had gotten it because I had gone. I'm vaccinated all the way besides the booster, but the Omicron was like making its way through, and I went to an event, a New Year's, and then it was after the fact that I was like, oh, I'm super sick, like do not feel good. And I was like, damn it. Like, I was like, well, I mean, it was an open area too. It wasn't like closed indoors. It was just like open environment. I was like, oh, it should be fine or whatever. No, it wasn't fine. I still caught COVID. It sucked. I'm so glad that I had the vaccine because it was the most awful thing I've had in a long time. And it was like maybe it didn't feel, if it ramped up, it was a weird thing. Like usually, you know how when I don't know if you guys have gotten sick before, but I don't know. When was the last? If you remember the last time you were really sick?
Well, I got a really bad stomach virus. We haven't caught
Nice.
COVID yet.
Good. Yeah. So that's good. And it's even better if you get the vaccine because it definitely lowers your chances of having any kind of mortality issues. Yeah. But it was super. It helped me out because I was like, I had like maybe two or 3 days of a fever, and the most intense fever was like in an evening. It was just like hours of just. Like I was like, I felt on the verge of death. It was just like really bad. It was really bad. I had to like do one of those cartoon things where put a cloth on your head, and it was like I'd never had to do that in my life. You know what I mean? Like
you didn't take an ice bath or anything?
No, I never had to do any of that. That was the first time in my life where I was like, oh, I need that because I'm overheating like legitimate. I was 102, and you can't sustain that for very long because 103 is like you need to go to the hospital like right now. So I was just brushing 102 and I was like, it was scary, and I was just like, I think I'll be okay. My body's just gonna kill the virus. And sure enough, the next day I woke up and it was done. And then I had an interview like a day later.
How long were you sick?
For like feeling not 100%. Took me about 2.5 weeks to 3.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And when the peak, like the really terrible, like you feel like you're dying.
That was like 5 days.
Oh shit. Into
the thing. For a stretch of like 3 days of feeling bad, and then the 3rd day being the peak. Yeah, it was bad. It sucked. Terrence was sick too, but he had the booster shot, so
yeah,
he was faring with it much better than I was. So
yeah, we got boosted. So
yeah, good. Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty crazy, and I the interview happened. I'd been through so many interviews by then that I was just kind of like, I knew what to do. I messed up a couple interviews earlier in the year. So just to get the listeners caught up, I guess, I spent, how would you say, maybe between now and then, maybe 2.5 years between, I don't know. Where was I? Oh yeah. So if you were last listening in on what the stuff that I was going through, I did not pass my quote unquote comprehensive exams, but I did publish a couple papers, and later in the year that I did not pass my exam. So COVID kind of threw a wrench on a lot of things. I think I would have been farther along on things, technically speaking, because COVID pushed everything up by like a year maybe. So yeah, I would have been out of school technically, I think, in 2020, or something like that. Basically, COVID made it to where I had maybe a year of bot time between now and then. But it made me reflect a lot on like what I wanted to do. And so like in between that time, I was kind of like, I might just like, if the job market isn't great coming out of COVID, like which I expected it not to be great, I was like, I'm going to apply to schools to transfer to because I have a lot of credits. And I mean, essentially like my PhD project apparently couldn't have anything to do with my master's according to some regulations. So it had to be different. So I was just like, well, I'm starting new anyway. And the research I want to do is quantum computing, more on the experimental, like qubit building stuff. So it was just like, or quantum materials essentially. And so I was just like, well, that's not really what's happening here at the lab. And so like, I'm going to move, I'm going to try to see if another place works out. Like, and so after I left, I knew I was going to get publications coming out. And so I kind of looked at the exam as like well, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I would have liked to stay because it would have saved me a bunch of time. You know what I mean? But it was just like, well, like I'm a second year PhD student and it was going on my third year because of COVID. So it was kind of like, well, on paper, it's like, you know, it's a lot of time. So I was like, well, I should apply to schools. I applied to a bunch of schools this last fall, like 5. Boulder just got back to me. Mm-hmm. Boulder said no. So Boulder said no, but I applied to NYU, Rutgers, Santa Barbara.
UC? Yeah.
Yeah. And then University of Washington, Seattle. Yeah. Cool. All schools that do quantum material stuff. So it was, I was like, I'm going to actually choose, you know, schools that have a lot, you know, how my research interests have shifted. So at the same time, I was like, you know, that's a fail safe. That's a plan B if I can't find a job. And I was having a hard time landing a job because I came out in 2021, May or spring pretty much. And I was just like, well, I don't know what to do now. I pretty much took the summer off, but I was still applying to jobs. And I had a couple interviews. I had an interview with, there's a national lab in Albuquerque. I forget the name. Man, I wish I could remember something with an L. Don't remember. It's not Los Alamos for those of you thinking about it. It's one with like an eagle or something. I don't remember the name of it. But it's a big lab. They have a branch in California in Livermore. I wish I could remember the name.
One of my friends works there, Lawrence Livermore.
Yeah. They have a branch of that lab in Livermore, which is like super cool. I don't know. It's a big lab. Anyway, they interviewed me for a microscopy position. The interview did not go well, but it was only because I made a blunder, which was, which I had been functioning under for the longest time. The assumption that like you go into the interview thinking, oh, these people know my CV, but they don't. Like, so it was almost like, you know, in the rule of like conversation, like at least entertaining conversation, you're supposed to yes and people, like you're supposed to yes and like kind of go along. I was just yesing, like I was stopping any kind of flow of the conversation to be natural and fluid because they were asking me like questions like, oh, so can you tell us a little bit about your CV? And I almost gave every time before I got the gist of what was happening. It was yeah, sure. You know, I'd give them a summary of what I did because I'm like, they read it already. But no, they did not read it already. they for the first time in that phone conversation, every time, and this is a general advice to listeners, these interviewers are using this allotted time with this table of researchers, if they're in science or whatever, they're using this time to vet you. So you're supposed to use that time to walk them through your CV, essentially. So I didn't learn that until after that. after I didn't get the job at that place, it was kind of striking because it was just like, man, I thought I did well, but then I reflected on it and I was just like, oh, you know what it was? I think it was this. Like, I keep assuming that they know what my CV is about when they don't. Because the series of questions were always just like, well, like, what did you do, like, in this? And I was just like, kind of being like, yeah, I mean, I did this and this. And then they're like, can you tell us more about that? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, this and that. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, if they were more honest about like, hey, we have your CV here, walk us through it, then I'd be like, perfect, cool. But no, they don't do that. They just tell you, all right, we're in. Hey, how's everybody doing? Cool, okay. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, that's how they open it up usually. And you just say whatever. But I had my CV so scripted that basically the way I said it, it was verbatim like what my CV says, and they loved it. And they were like, well, the people, I even did this when I was sick. So it was just like, fast forward, you know, I did a couple interviews with Georgia Tech University. I did a couple interviews with Thermo Fisher. This lab in Albuquerque, I forget the name. I'm so sorry, because they're a really cool institution, and they were really cool people. But the interview, I guess, these interviews didn't really go that well. So on top of that, I think they all said that I was a pretty good candidate. So it was just like, I know that at that point, which is what I didn't understand before, was that if they're interviewing you, you already have the qualifications. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to see if you mesh with the group. So it was like, those are the things I didn't understand until I literally did the interview with these folks at PNNL. And I got the interview at PNNL, and I told them, I was like, right away, I was like, hey y'all, I'm actually coming out of an upper respiratory infection. And they're like, yeah, we all are. And I was like, okay, great. Okay, cool. But it sounded more like this. I was just like super, you know, super congested. It was bad. It was bad. And, but they knew what it was, and they were just like, yeah, can you, you know, and then I pretty much took over, and I was just like, well, I know what this is, blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, honestly, you know, you're great. Like, you do everything that we want you to do, and, you know, we're really interested in bringing you on. And I was like, cool. And I was like, can you send us references like right now? And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. And boom, 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 send them references, vetted. And they're like, within like a week, they gave me an offer. And I was like, they're like, you have 2 weeks to accept. I milked those 2 weeks. And because I was like, I'm going to move across the country, you know, and I talked to a bunch of people, and I was like, they were like, ask for a raise. And I was like, all right, well, I asked for a raise. I negotiated a raise, but I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this is the government. So they have budgets, and they don't budge the budgets.
So they didn't budge at all?
They're like, the most we can cap you out at is like 1,000 more than what's on your thing. And I was like, oh great. Okay, cool. I'll take it over nothing. So, so yeah, but then they were like, you're only technically a research associate, so you're not a research scientist. So the position is like almost like not non-permanent, it's non-contractual. So I can pretty much be let go at any time. So it was just, but the guy's like, you know, you're a human being. We're not going to do that to you. So I was just like, okay, all right, well, I'll trust you on that.
But let me give you that disclaimer beforehand. So if it happens, you can't say anything.
I know. I'm like, okay, all right, if you say so. But yeah, the research scientist position is like the level above it, where you now are brought on as as official staff, where you have like all benefits, and you know, you get paid, you know, like 80 something K, I don't know, 85K or something like that.
But it's possible for you to build up to that level, or are you only going to be, you're only allowed to be this research associate, and they're not giving you a chance to?
No, the research associate is almost like a trial.
Oh, okay, got it.
It's like they see if you're a good fit with the lab, and then if they like you, they're going to bring you on full time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, So yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of like checkpoints between that and then. Like I was telling Joe that it's like you gotta do a federal background check because you're working for a government lab, and so like they have to vet you that way, and some people don't pass for whatever reason. I don't know. Like it could be, I don't know. It seems rather selective and subjective in terms of like what they're looking at. I was reading about it online, and I was just like, well, like, I mean, it's not like I have anything to really worry about, but it depends on the agent that is assigned to your case, and they can either like be like, yeah, this person's fine, like, you know, or they can be really meticulous and look at your profile and like be as ardent or as hard as they want to be, and yeah, and that's so I'm like, well, if I get it, then great. If I get, you know, if I get cleared to work for it, then I think I'm gonna stick around. If and only if it's everything I imagined what having a PhD would be like. So if they have me doing things that I'm like, oh, this is not what I envisioned, and I need a PhD to do what I like, then I might just like 180 and just try to pivot back to a program so that I can finish, and then, you know, hopefully one of the 5 schools that I apply to accepts me, and then I can kind of defer. I think you get like a year or something. And in that span of time, that would mean that I would have until fall of next year to make a decision between working there that would be like, is this everything that I want, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a couple questions on that. I mean, one is just to tie it back to Eigenbros, but maybe the other one is, let's go with the other one for now. So it sounds like right out the gate you were interested in perhaps going back to grad school, and so you still felt the passion for
no,
the
I wouldn't
physics.
say passion.
Okay, so then what's the motivation for like applying to these 5-6 schools that you said?
As a backup plan, because like I said, it's like you don't really know until you're there what it's like in the I guess in a non-academic environment, what it's like if a PhD is what I need to do the research that I want to do, then it's like I almost have no choice, like in my sort of vision of it. Like it's almost like, oh well, you know, if I'm sort of it sounds to me like this job is semi-autonomous, like I can kind of work independently and just on the projects that are obviously interesting to me. But it sounds to me like they can shuffle me around, but that sounds to me like that's pretty much any scientist. I don't know, at the lab there. So I don't know the distinction. If the distinction is only in labels at that level, then I'm just like, what does it matter if I go back or not? You know, like I get to do the same research. Maybe they get paid a little more, but is that worth, you know, 2 to 3 years of sludging through another program? You know what I mean? So it's like I definitely would have to weigh the cost benefit analysis, whatever opportunity costs of like doing that. But I felt more secure. I feel more secure in myself having a fallback plan. You know what I mean? Like that being the thing that's like, well, I know grad school and I know what it's like, and I know that it beats any other minimum wage job in the sense that, you know, I know how to navigate how silly the institutions are. I still know what they operate like, and at least there's some familiarity in that, in the misery of it all. So it's like, there's that. Because I've definitely, in between that time, I worked doing food delivery, Uber Eats, and it's like most students are doing that, and I'm like, dang, like good luck to people who are doing that full time, by the way. But I got a job at the post office for some time, like 3 months. I was making buku bucks there, but only because they worked me like all the time. It was like 12-hour days, and the worst. I quit in December. I started in September, and I was like, I didn't have any day. The longest I went without a day off was maybe 3 weeks, working like 12-hour shifts. So it felt like grad school, but at least I was getting paid. You know what I mean? I was like, I've been here before. I was like, I've been in this position before, but at least I'm getting paid. And I told everybody there, I was like, look, I've done a lot more for a lot less. So this is like actually an upgrade, believe it or not. And then, but by the time like it's labor work, so you pick up boxes and whatever, and you're driving around the countryside, delivering shit in the dark sometimes, and it's just like, yeah, you know what? This isn't really what I want to do. It's like I'm spending way too much time. I've spent way too much time like at the post office, and it wasn't even like I had the luxury of like looking for other jobs, because by the time I got home, I was just like, I need to go to bed because I got to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to do it all over again. You know what I mean? So it was just like, and I would go over 12 hours all the time. And you're legally not supposed to. You're supposed to like, but the management was like just not great. They fired the postmaster at my place after I left, according to a friend of mine that worked there. And yeah, it was just like, it was awful. It was awful, but the money was great. Like I basically made like, my biggest paycheck was like $5,000 in 2 weeks, which was like, I know, you're like, what the hell? Yeah, you're like, that's a fourth of my wages for the whole year.
Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I literally.
Let me do that for spring break. 2,500 right there.
Yeah, I for real like did. And then after that, it was like I looked at my W-2 that they gave me, and it was like, wow, I made $15,000 in 3 months. I was like, wow, that's a lot of money.
What did they pay you like hour? Is it an hour?
It was like $20 an hour.
Oh, okay,
it's not too bad.
Yeah, not bad. But everybody that was there was like, yeah, you just get treated like awful. Just, but not because of like the people there. It was mostly just because they were so understaffed that you could not get days off. Then like. And it's a federal job, so I was just like, I can't fuck this up because I'm applying to government jobs. Like, if I get fired from a government job, it's not going to look great. So I had to play really nicely for the first, like, 90 days or 3 months working there. But by the time my 90 days, because for 90 days in the post office, you're on probation, which means you can be fired for pretty much anything. And actually nothing. They could just be like, you know, you're out of here. Which I was just trying to play nice the whole time. And so by the time my 90 days were up, I was just like, you know what? I'm physically not, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's just, I'm tired, whatever. I need to apply to a bunch of jobs. Like, I can't be doing this. I got to do grad school apps in like a week. So, and I was just like, yeah, I'm going. And then, yeah. And then I got a job opportunity a couple weeks later. So I made the right decision, I think. So yeah, that's pretty much the synopsis of it.
Wow.
After that, yeah, a lot has happened.
So that happened right after you left.
Grad school?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did interviews in the summer.
For jobs?
For jobs at labs and a bunch of stuff, but I wasn't getting any bites. Like I got interviews. Like I had a couple interviews every month, but it was like they weren't. With the interviews like that, what they don't tell you is that they take a really long time to get back to you. I didn't find out about this job with the lab in Albuquerque. I wish I knew the name because I keep bringing it up. I'm going to look this up real quick. But they didn't get back to me. I had the interview in like June, and they didn't get back to me till August and told me that I didn't get it.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can imagine how long that like, yeah, it's a couple months. And Thermo Fisher never actually got back to me. I had like 2 interviews with them, and the second interview I guess did not really go that well, but they were just like, they never got back to me, like whether or not they made a decision. So
you're just assuming that was a no?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
They'll call you back tomorrow and be like, hey, we want you.
Yeah. I mean, some places legitimately forget. So, but I was like, yeah, I must have been not that great if they forgot. The place is Sandia, by the way, Sandia National Laboratories.
Oh.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that pisses me off though, right? Like,
What?
I feel like you're at least due the courtesy of like a rejection, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they spent the time to interview you, you know.
I know.
Like,
Yeah, Sandia said no. I had an interview with Georgia Tech, and they were like, they screened me, and then they had an interview with me, and then they didn't even reply back. So I don't know what that was about. There was a couple other places that I forget. They were not that serious. I don't know. I guess they just, I don't know. I applied to Brookhaven. They were the most difficult to like get something with. Every application that I sent there was denied. Like even like the base level, like cryogenics. Like I experienced cryogenics. I was like, oh, if I get in, then I can just work my way up through divisions or whatever. No, they're just like, even if you're a cryogen tech, and I have extensive history with cryogens because I worked at the lab as a bunch of cryogens or whatever. And they're like, no. They like rejected it, pretty much everything, like machine shop stuff. No. I was like, I'm more than qualified for this stuff. Hilarious. But Brookhaven is like really tight knit. And yeah, they were the most surprising for me to be like, what is the word I'm looking for? To be, I guess, have a really high standard. That make any sense? Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much a good synopsis of what's been happening the past year and a half, maybe 2.
Yeah, so you mentioned Eigenbros is changing.
Yeah.
What does that
look
mean?
like?
Yeah.
It's changing in the way that's like less frequently. I think for Terrence's like model of the Eigenbros is like it's putting your name out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is phase 1, if he envisions this as phase 1. I kind of envision it as phase 1 just because like you have a strong core audience and then you kind of build on that. But I've always wanted to do like short form content. It's like like essay stuff.
I see.
But Terrence's model is more like just frequency.
Yep.
Just like get have people have some consistency and just get it out there so that you can build a brand name. And I agree with that. That's important. But like for me, I'm very much like a quality type of content person that like I need to spend a lot of time with something and then put that together and then put it out there. So the channel's going to look a lot more like video essays. And then probably some like clips. We'll probably use clips from different guests that we've had on and just put that out there so it can have like increase the brand recognition stuff and just have it in short form from the long form interviews. And people can always go to long form interviews if they want. So yeah, there will be that there, and then whenever we get a chance to link up, we will do a long form. Or if we get a good guest, we said that we would do Zoom. Terrence he said that he doesn't like Zoom stuff, and I think it's hard to do Zoom stuff. Like admittedly, like just, I mean, we talk over each other all the time, like over Zoom. I mean, I've taught over Zoom. It's very difficult to coordinate. It's very rigid, It's not as fluid as a in-person conversation because there's a lot more dimensions to the. Like it's easier to see body language and like navigate all that. So, what was I saying? Okay.
Well, talking about how Eigenbros is changing, but
yeah. So I think that's pretty much how it
decrease in frequency and then changing to like shorter video essays.
Shorter video essays, like 10 minutes. For me, it's gaining the algorithms. Video essays are like short form content where it's like 10 minutes of 10 plus minutes usually. I'm kind of averaging here, but of like informational content. So one of the things I've been teasing for like almost a year is a video essay that I was working on, that I kind of am working on, and it's The Physics of Finance, and it's based off of this book that I read a while back. I've been wanting to do a video on it for the longest time, and yeah, it's just, you just basically just want to make it as informational as possible, with also just have some kind of entertaining or interesting take on the subject matter. So like, not only do I want to summarize like the content of what you're displaying, like, I don't know, some of the most famous video essays are like, Vsauce loves doing video essays. Have you seen this stuff before?
Yeah, I've shown her a lot of it.
Yeah.
Vsauce, Veritasium,
Veritasium.
PBS Spacetime. Those are all like
PBS Spacetime has like the biggest quality.
Yeah.
But we ain't never gonna get to that. Like, because they have a production team. Like, they have a team of scientists that write the stuff, and like they have super good quality content. If the Eigenbros were to ever put out anything like that, it would be like we would have a team of writers. Like we would, like, there's no fucking way we're gonna do it. I'm sorry to say it. It's like, with me and Terrence, like, no, I move too slow, and I'm too methodical with like the amount of, like, I'm too meticulous too with like what I want to do with the content. Like, for long, I can't even agree on the script that I want for my own video essay that I'm directing and I'm producing. So it's like, it's tough, but yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that because with this change in direction for the Eigenbros, knowing Terrence and knowing his opinions, like you already kind of stated his philosophy. Like, it just seems like I kind of wanted to know if you could share any like behind the scenes detail, because it sounds like you guys have very different
approaches.
Yeah. Like, is there a lot of conflict between you two?
No, because I put him in charge. Well, it's not that I put him in charge. It was just like, well, I mean, the Eigenbros were started as a unit thing. Like, we both were like, let's do it as a hangout thing, and then I was like, dude, I'll let you take in charge of it because I'm in grad school, and you can do whatever you think is best to like get the name out there. So he's had the reins on it for the past 3 years. I want to say maybe going on 4. I don't know. And he's done pretty good. He's like gotten the brand awareness stuff like pretty high, and like he's built a good solid foundation. Like, we have right now, I think about 5,000 subscribers, and then we have like almost 100 patrons on Patreon. Love our Patreon people. They're all super cool. And they're just, and I mean, like, he's built a pretty good solid core, like, and for that I'm just like good stuff. But for me, I was always just like, I think we need to shift. For me, it's like a time and effort axis. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's very little effort to producing a 1 hour episode of something. Yeah. Especially with, I mean, maybe it's a couple hours of research, and then, you know, maybe a day or two of reading and doing whatever, producing, and then, you know, rendering and all that stuff, and, you know, whatever. But with, you know, I would say maybe it needs to be a 3 scale axis.
You want to add an extra
quality,
dimension? Yeah,
because quality is another dimension where it's like, you know, maybe it's a 4-dimensional one.
Oh my! you need to maximize a hypercube. Like, what
Well, because it's like you need to also incorporate like what the audience thinks about it. Like, if the audience is like, you know, if that generates views, if the algorithm sorts on YouTube, it sorts for short digestible content. Yeah, it doesn't sort for long form content, and that's something that's like, I'm like, I kind of want to get the most bang out of my buck. Like, if I'm going to be investing, you know, even if it's 20 hours a week into something, I want it to be the best 20 hours I can put into something. Like, I don't want it to be like, you know, okay. But that's my philosophy. Like, you know, in between like producing the show, doing the show, recording and all that stuff, I'm exaggerating a little bit with 20 hours. I mean, it's probably like 12, maybe 10 to 12 a week. Yeah. But yeah, it's, even then, I'm just like those hours. You know, if you're trying to produce like a video essay, those hours, like, you know, I could imagine it being at least 4 times that, like 40 hours to make a good quality product.
Yeah.
That I think people are gonna like, or that I think that is something that I would enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It's but it takes a lot of time, so it's kind of hard to bite that, especially if you're trying to make a name for yourself. So it's like, this might be the perfect opportunity to kind of like
switch things up a little bit.
Yeah, switch things up and then build off of what we have.
I see.
So
yeah, so you want to maximize the quality of your product, and to do that, you think you need to shorten the time scale, and then also consider what other people want to watch and stuff like that.
Yeah, because right now we've just kind of been doing like self-interested stuff.
Yeah,
like, just like people that we like, guests that we like, or people that I mean, I've pretty much let Terrence manage everything. I'm more of the producer of. Sometimes, actually, he produces shows in terms of like picking the topics, but that's kind of spread more evenly sometimes, depending on like what the burden of our schedules are. But essentially, like, I now, ever since like I think last summer, I've shifted as like the producer of the shows, so, and the content. So like, I'll make thumbnails, I'll make cuts and edits and all that stuff, and just generally produce the show. And yeah, I mean, it is appreciated. So I know people are kind of like looking for like more higher quality content from our channel, other than just long form stuff. I would like to do both, but that would require a lot of, like, people would have to be paying more, so that I can devote just my full time to it. But
yeah. So there's a couple things. What would you rather talk about? When you brought up like, you got to consider what the fans want, right? Makes me wonder like how you were, like what your take is on like parasocial relationships kind of thing. Like, how do you relate to your audience nowadays? Like, what's your perspective? And then the other thing I'm curious about is like, I mean, just now that, you know, you're more doing the producing and stuff like that, like, how do you feel about, you know, with that change? And like, what do you, like, how do you envision that that's going to change as the whole Eigenbros thing is going to undergo this whole thing? Is like, because the producing higher quality content, I think, is going to take more time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm allotted more time.
Yeah.
So
because it's going to be less frequent.
Yeah, like imagine like if I spent a month cranking out one video essay, and that gets like 20,000 views or whatever, like, and you know, maybe it maxes out at more than that. Like the vision of that, I mean, the amount of views that gets is like is enough to like, now there's a higher frequency of viewers, not just what the viewers that stumble upon us because the algorithm suggests our channel just from based off of tagged words, right? It draws in a wider audience to me, putting out a more concentrated quality thing. So I think producing, like shifting to production, made me realize, oh, this is a lot more attainable than I thought it was before. Especially since, like, if I'm producing a whole episode, by the way, the most time I spent on producing an episode was the one I think we had with the multiverse. And you guys can check it out on the Eigenbros podcast. That was the one I spent the most time doing animations, doing stuff like that, like just switching up things and just trying to also make it entertaining. And I was like, oh, this is very doable. Like, I can also make the even in these short bursts, I can make the podcast like entertaining. So it kind of made me understand that it's like, oh, I can make the show I want. If I wanted to just do short form stuff, video essay content stuff. I don't know if that answers your question, but as far as like parasocial stuff, yes, I do kind of have to like take into consideration what the audience wants, because ultimately, like it's like it used the show was mainly focused on like stuff that we want to do. I mean, we studied with y'all. Like the show was born out of us hanging out with y'all, like us having what is it, theoretical dynamics, like, and we were just like, you know what, maybe we should like sit down and record something just to have fun, and a bunch of people were just like, you guys should just like sit down and just like press record and see what happens. And yeah, like, and that's easy. It's easy for us to have conversations. That's not a lot of work. But I know that, like, it's also important for people to, like, enjoy the stuff we're putting out. Because if you're just putting it out there in a vacuum, it's, like, not as rewarding as it would be if people were getting something out of it. Like, at least more eyes. Like, I know that it's, like, especially now, I think the first year was kind of like us having baby steps and all that. But, like, as of recently, we've put out good, like, we've had pretty good guests on. I mean, we've gotten lucky with Veritasium, and I can't even believe I've met the guy even over Zoom. Like, just have a conversation with. It's insane. Like, sometimes I forget. I'm like, oh damn, I interviewed Veritasium. Wow. Yeah, 3 blue, 1 brown. I mean, like, a bunch of cool people. Yeah, I mean, just shout out to everybody that we have on the channel. Mythina was great. You know, it's just, I mean, just y'all have been, you know, great. You know, we didn't have y'all on. I don't know how long the show's going to go, but maybe if it's like, even, I don't know. I would just love collaborating too with more people. Just doing like even video essay stuff, because I think like that helps like brand recognition or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think now just kind of considering what the audience will like is something that I factor into my work a lot, just because, like, is this content enjoyable? Like, am I gonna, like, I know I would enjoy, I always have to factor in if I would enjoy the stuff, because if I don't enjoy it, then I'm not going to put it out. So it has to pass my filter.
Yeah.
But then the hard part is also being like, is somebody else going to enjoy this, or are other people going to enjoy this? And that's kind of harder to gauge, because you just need to put it out there. And I want a lot of my stuff to be bangers. And this is something that Terrence is like, bro, you just got to put it out there. But I'm like, I'm not even ready to say goodbye to this thing and say it's done.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Because I have a hard time with that, just by making, like, I make like these, I make like sort of music videos. I just record stuff and then put music over it and make cuts and like try to experiment, really. It's just like kind of an experimentation with like flow and whatnot from just the visual stuff, and then also the music, and just kind of more artistic, kind of creative endeavors. But it's like 3 minutes to like, it's very easy to put something together like that. But it's like that allowed for me to kind of see what it was like to do something more creative. Yeah. I'm kind of losing sight of what I'm saying here. Maybe this, I don't know how much vodka what's in here.
Secret sauce, man.
Secret sauce.
Don't worry about it.
Well, this lemon is really good.
Yeah, it's from our lemon tree, man. Nice. It's homegrown. But yeah, just to point it, I do think I want to transition a bit. Sure. It seems like we're getting a nice round cap, but just to point the question a little bit more is like, what I was curious about is, I don't know how many comments you tend to get on like a typical video, but like now you're getting like, at 5K subscribers, I imagine you're getting like a flow of information of like feedback from the community to you. Like, sure. I'm just kind of curious as a young budding YouTuber, how does that like affect your psychology? Like, is the feedback like mostly positive? Is it like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, most of the stuff is pretty positive. I mean, the people that don't like the show are more like people that just don't understand what the show is about. Like, I mean, sorry, that don't like us, or people that don't understand what the show is about. So it's like, for instance, they'll say the show is too loose, or the show is too. You guys should do more research on this. And I'm like, that's like video essay stuff. This podcast is usually like we talk about it. Me and Terrence talk about a topic. That's literally it. Like two people that like physics and science in general, like talk about a particular thing that interests them. That's literally it. Like that's, if you can't ride with that, then like, you know, it can be a sort of smart conversation sometimes, but sometimes it's us just being like, we're being honest with you, like this we still can't fully wrap our heads around this, but it's also just, you know, it's most of the time it's first impression stuff. Like if we really do like a topic, we'll follow up on it, and people will get we'll let you.
Yeah, let's take a pause break real quick.
Yep.
Be back with y'all in a sec. All right, we're back from a little bathroom break, a little R&R.
Pizza break.
Yeah,
Woo.
Pizza break.
I love it.
So feeling fat and happy right now, personally.
Hell yeah.
But cool. We'll just hard segue and we'll just drop whatever the hell we were talking about before this. So
something comments from audience stuff, Eigenbros.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I feel like we got a nice good picture on Eigenbros. So what I was kind of curious to talk about, I don't know how comfortable you feel talking about this, right? That's the preface. What what I want is, if you feel comfortable, is to like, if you can basically dish, right? Tell me like what it was.
Spit it, Joe. Spit it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Give it to me straight, Doc.
When you left grad school, right? Like, what was that whole process like? Yeah. What did it feel like? What are your honest thoughts about the program? And perhaps you could speak more generally about like physics.
This particular program or physics, or both? I can do both.
You can do both.
Either.
Just spill your guts, your heart. Just let it all on the table.
Here we go. No, I'm just kidding. If I don't answer some of those questions, please direct, because I do want to answer all of them.
Yeah.
So like,
just go with whatever seems like.
Yeah, like the first thing I think I latched onto was like just, like what did it feel like leaving grad school? Well, it was kind of hard, just because it was just like, it's, you know, I think when you come into grad school, you're like, oh, this is going to be a lot of, you know, you're doing it for your professional development, right? Like you're going into it so that you can come out of it a better researcher, a better professional in your field, right? It's supposed to be professional development. So by the time I was getting ready to like preparing myself for the possibility of me like leaving, it was more of, well, professionally, I got a lot out of it. I've taken a bunch of graduate courses. I've kind of reached the pinnacle of like contemporary modern physics. I know I'm at where everyone else is at in that curriculum space. So I felt like I got that done. That was good. And then the other thing was the research. Like I had produced a master's thesis, and like technical manuscripts that led to publications. And so it was nice for a lot of the professional stuff. And then so I was just like, if I don't pass this like comprehensive exam, I'm just kind of like, I got what I wanted out of this, and I'm just going to try to move on to the next thing. And so like accepting that was something easy to accept. But the thing that wasn't easy to accept was the fact that you feel like you're saying goodbye to something that's kind of like, I mean, I'm going to use a really grim term, but it's like stillborn. It's like you're something that you tried to birth you spent a lot of time trying to create and birth and how would you say, manage and feed and like feed into it and just cultivate it, to only be like left with just like almost like, yeah, you didn't produce anything technically, like at the best. I guess you didn't produce the end goal thing, which was PhD. So it is kind of tough, like it was tough accepting that, like just being like, man, I'm saying goodbye to a bunch of things, and it almost feels like, at least for me in my situation, it felt like you weren't saying goodbye at the pace that you wanted to or at the place you wanted to. It was like, man, I'm gonna be leaving this, like the institution, but also the people that make up the institution, which usually, I mean, it's my cohort, it's my friends. I worked with my friends. I worked with people that I like. I was around people that I liked all the time, and it's like you're saying goodbye to that, and then you're also saying goodbye to. I mean, I liked the city. I liked the nature stuff, so it was just like, man, I'm gonna leave this too. Like I like living around here. It grew on me. It really did. And so like saying goodbye to all that was like kind of something that I had to come to terms with, and it was like, I thought it was going to be easier said than done, but it wasn't. Once I like left, I was like, man, like you feel so cut off from the life that you had before that it's so like man, this is kind of shocking how like you just kind of don't have that anymore. It's like, whoa. It feels different from like undergrad, because in undergrad, I think for me at least, I was in my hometown, and like I still had a lot of the friendships that I had. So it wasn't such a clear like delineation from my day to day. But like with grad school, it was like, oh, all my friends that I made here are busy with their stuff, but I'm like over here trying to figure out my next step in life. So it's like, it can't necessarily align the two schedules, because I'm like, I don't know, it's just the way things work. It's like grad students are underpaid and overbooked, and it's just, you know, it's very hard to like find time to do anything outside of what you already have. So I was like, man, this is tough. It's tough navigating it. And for the first couple months, it was, you know, I was really hopeful that I was going to find a job, and it seemed like I was, but I think about, I don't know, like 3 months into the thing, recognizing that it's like, oh, this is going to be a long process. I was like, wow. It started hitting me that it was like going to be a lot more mentally, how would you say, I guess draining. Just the amount of stress and instability and uncertainty, and like, I don't know where I'm going to end up. Like I started applying a bunch of national lab jobs and like private industry jobs as well. But the ones that were biting were all national lab jobs. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, most of them were national lab jobs or some kind of government, tied to government stuff. So it was like, man, and I'm going to go where the opportunities are. So it was tough. Like, and to the point where I felt like, I was like, man, I'm going to have to go back to grad school if I don't like that. After those 3 months, I was like, I'm going to have to figure something out, you know, as opposed to PhDs, where once you get the PhD, you're like, bro, there's nowhere else to go. Like, postdoc is maybe the next thing, but you don't hear of too many postdocs like after post-grad being like, I'm going to go find a postdoc position after a year gap. That sounds to me like it's unheard of, but yeah, and it was psychologically like a lot more of a hurdle to go through than I had anticipated. Just to be like, damn, I'm out. I have a lot of freedom, and I don't really know where I'm going to land. So I don't know. I know a friend of ours. Well, me and Terrence is really, I don't know if you guys met him, but he was our roommate. Carlos, he also spent, I think he maybe had graduated for like a couple months, and then, no, he had graduated in when was this? I think in the summer, and then he stayed living with us for a couple months, and then he was like decided finally, he was like, I'm gonna go home, and the last I heard, he still hadn't found anything, and he has his PhD, and the people that I know that got PhDs kind of had to settle for some jobs. Like I know a guy, he was more strict about his like where he wanted to work, so he wanted to work in the Midwest. Well, I should say Mid-East, really. It's like south of Lake Michigan or whatever. Or is it Lake Michigan? It is Lake Michigan, right? Am I tripping on it?
I mean, it sounds...
It's Huron, Ontario, Michigan, and Erie or something. Yeah, it's Lake Michigan and like about south of there. But anyway, he was more stringent upon it, but he was like, he took a position at like a startup or something, getting paid like not what he deserved. Like he got paid very little, but he had equity in the company, so that was good. But still, for me as a master's thinking like I'm going to be a master's student, I was like, do I really want to stay? I had so many questions. It was just like during the year of the pandemic that I was just like, I think it makes more sense if I just like go and see what's out there. My advisor was just like, look, I support whatever you do, but it sounds to me like a lot of your life goals are kind of, you want to start planting seeds now. It sounds to me like you want to go make money so that you can start a family, so you can do this stuff, and then maybe come back to a PhD if you want. You know, who knows? But I was just like, maybe so. So there was a lot of question marks that I had left with that, like I still think I need answers to, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So if you come at it at the mindset of like, these are my questions and I'm going out there to find the answers, and then, you know, if I find that the PhD is what I really need to do what I want, then I'm going to have to come back. So, but if it's not, then you get to live on the rest of your life happily ever after, right? So yeah, that's kind of a quick synopsis. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to recap some of the things that I heard. I loved your analogy with the stillborn.
Yeah.
It's a bit macabre, but I can appreciate it. Definitely seems like this baby that you're putting a lot of love and care into. Yeah. And it's sad not to see that come to term.
Right, exactly. It's succinctly put, by the way. That's what it is. It's like quite literally what it is.
To see.
Yeah,
to have it stillborn, you know.
For real, like it and it feels that way. It's just like, man, I helped produce, you know, you had a conception of what you wanted this thing to be, but it's like you put a lot of time and effort into producing this thing, and it's like, man, you know, for one thing or another, it's like this, yeah, it feels like you're holding something that's like, oh, this might not happen.
Yeah.
You know. So it is tough. It is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. When
you get to that point. And a lot of grad students get to that point. Well, the ones that leave get to that point, you know, sooner rather than later, I think. I think for us it's like we were, not that we were fortunate, but you know, coming in as master's students, we kind of do get a vantage point where it's like, do I really want this? You know? And then like coming into by year 4, some people were just like, I'm so over this. Some people just leave, you know? But I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to finish up on the recap, I mean, there is a lot of like your social life is tied to graduate school. I mean, it's so intertwined, right? Like when you leave, a lot of that community and network is gone, and like you said, everyone's busy, and it's just like, what do you do? I have a lot of empathy for that. I could definitely relate. If I just take a moment to relate, is just like for my break this past semester, I mean, I was grappling with a lot of those same questions about like what next, right? Like, what is it that I even want, you know? Like, what do I do? And to be frank, I don't have an answer. I spent a good amount of time thinking about it. I'm like, well, I don't fucking know. So I'm just gonna keep moving and then see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like maybe you can relate to that. It sounds like
Yeah.
a little bit of a similar tack.
Yeah. I mean, in some way, unconsciously or another, I kind of chose a path, like, because I would say like my indifference to the comprehensive exams kind of felt like I was, like, it would have been great if I passed, but it was also like I didn't really. It was like, well, like the philosophy of the department. What I thought it aligned with my philosophy, which is like, tests, kind of bullshit. Doesn't really matter. It's like what really matters is the research. You put in that's what a PhD is, right? At least to me. And I thought that's what it was coming into it. At least that's the message that I gathered. But with my time in it, it definitely did not turn out that way. It was a lot more convoluted and definitely a lot of hoops that kind of appeared in front of my path, or barriers, I would say, that that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and just was. I mean, by the time I had transferred into the PhD program, it was like it left a bad impression on me, and I always kind of held that for the department, just being like, I don't really feel like they understand. Like we're on the same page about what I want to get out of this out of a PhD, as opposed to what they think I should get out of a PhD. So it was, it was a little bit like, not shocking, but it was a disillusionment for me to really get to that realization where it's like, well, like, there may be another institution out there that has the views aligned more to mine. And for the listeners that, I don't know if I said this on the show. Maybe I did. I don't remember. Yes, I did. Okay. So applied to Boulder, I applied to NYU, Rutgers, and UW, and then Santa Barbara. All those schools have oral examinations, which I find to be more favorable to my research. How would I say this? Research-centered PhD. Like, it's not focused on writing exams. It's purely, for the most part, I mean, as long as you pass your courses and all that, it's based off of your competency for research. So yeah, and the schools that I even was going to go back to would all be schools that have the same philosophy I have in mind, as opposed to the school like that I chose to come to was more out of like continuity's sake. Coming out of grad school, I just wanted to go to a school just to continue right away off of undergrad, to keep the momentum. So I was less picky on but I chose the school that I thought the philosophy was sort of matched. But like I said, it turns out it wasn't. So that was kind of an adjustment, and sort of trying to marry the two. It didn't really work out. So, so yeah, it took some adjustment to get to that point. So,
yeah.
I forgot what that was the answer. Or something.
That's okay. I think that was great. I have some more questions, but I just wanted to give you a chance if you had anything.
Go for it.
If you wanted to jump in.
You can ask other questions, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the question I have in my head is just there's no way that we at this table have an answer to this. So it's just, I guess it's an invitation to speculate, right?
Okay,
it's
go
like,
for it.
Like, I wonder how much of like this philosophy that left a bad taste in your mouth is just like
like a function.
Yeah, it's almost like inescapable, right? It's like it's just a byproduct of this I don't know what I want to call it. I should think about this, but it's like a narrative, or just like the culture in like physics or science or whatever in like a graduate school environment. I just feel like these evaluatory metrics, even if it's like research based, which I think I agree is a step in the right direction, and that's something that is a good indication of the school's values. Anyways, this is a long-winded way of saying, like,
Go for it.
I worry that, like, say you get into Santa Barbara, right? Whether it's just going to be, you know, more heartbreak, right?
Right.
And, like, I guess I wonder, how optimistic are you about that?
Well, like, assuming that the school isn't lying, which has happened.
Yeah.
It's like it leaves more. It gives me my experience from the previous school, I would say, has given me enough information and history where I can look at the overall pattern of behaviors that kind of lend to, like, what I would say red flags. That if the institution has these markers of, like, well, like, you say this, but, you know, I sense that the culture is not like that, then that's not the school I'm going to go for. Like, I think when I came into grad school, I was very much under the impression that it sort of naivete to the way I navigated it. It was more like the people in the department have my best interest, and that is not true. Like, they have their own best interest, and it's the department serves as a collective, and they serve the interests of the department above you, the student. And so, keeping that in mind, sorry, I had to do a dramatic swallow. Keeping that in mind, like, you gotta, like, I don't want to say that it's all combative, you know, and that it's all, like, us versus them kind of thing, but it kind of is. But I also don't know if that's just my relation as a grad student at this particular institution. I don't know if the culture is universal, and that's, like, I mean, maybe that's what you're saying. It's speculative about it. However, I do have the information where I can say I don't want a repeat of that. Mm-hmm. So if I do go into another institution, if I'm at the point where I'm like, damn, I have to go back to school because I can't do what I want unless I get a PhD, then that will be the information I carry, where I'm like, I can pick and choose a little bit more, with more diligence, I guess, and just be more stringent on the departments that are, like, you know, be more of an advocate to myself, as opposed to taking an approach that's just like, well, these people care about me and they want to, you know, they're gonna figure it out for me. It's like, no.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds like a really healthy attitude. I guess, you know, I don't know how you do with compliments, but I want to say I'm proud of you for saying that.
Thanks.
Just because, like, being able to, like, first recognize your needs, I guess, and then to, like, advocate for them is not easy.
No, right? It's not. Especially when you're younger, you're just like, still figuring it out.
Yeah, and then, you know, I'm going to speak for myself, and then maybe you can...
Sure, I can corroborate. Corroborate
because, you know, I'm going to be a little bitter here, right? And so,
I have a lot of bitterness.
So, yeah, it's just something that I'm coming to appreciate going to therapy, right? Just like, I'm constantly putting myself in a situation where I'm like, oh, I have to meet their expectations, right? This is what, like, they expect of me, so I need to get this done because they said so.
Yeah.
And often almost always, I never really stop to think about, well, it's like, I'm the one giving them my time. I'm the one that's, like, you know, I'm coming here because they're supposed to be training me, right?
Right.
Like, I'm thinking about what I could provide for them. I'm never really thinking about, like, well, what is it that they're giving me, you know?
Right.
And I feel like my attitude of just, like, what can I provide for them is kind of like almost what's expected of me. You know, it's like, you know, it seems like, I don't know, just because it's so natural for, like, these people in these institutions, like you said, most people will care about their own interest. And so they'll be happy to have you bend over backwards and kill yourself to do this work, right? It will be very rare to find the person who's going to be like, well, like let's take a step back and like just think about your needs and center you for in this instance.
Right.
Like, you know, my advisor is like maybe unique, you know, someone who's
accommodating.
yeah, who's unique in this space.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's not like
you can't bend the rules.
Well, it's still rare. I mean, it's like he's not like he's a great person, but he's not like a saint or anything. I mean,
right.
So anyways, it's just to say like how often is it the experience of us in this graduate program to have like had our needs centered at all, right? And that's fucked up. You know, I just want to, you know, take a second to like bitch about that, I guess. I don't know.
No, dude, for sure. Like look, I have an incredible bitterness that is like, it's like, my whole time actually in entering the graduate program after my second year was just incredible bitterness, because I was just like, they're treating me like a weird, I'm in this weird, I said a bastard child of the department, because I'm a master's student, but I'm also like coming into the PhD program. We're not fully integrated in the particular fellowship that I was in. The department already had, it seemed like it was a pet project it was seen as a pet project for a particular type of, maybe two professors out of the whole department. And so they kind of looked at the students in there as like, you're here for certain reasons, not necessarily because you match the quality of the students that are around here. But it felt like the culture was more combative than like, how would I say that they didn't really, how would I say this, integrate us into the culture. So it was, so I already felt the energy kind of like shift. And it felt like there was a how would I say this? Like a culture that just that kind of masked their support of minority students as like, well, you know, it's the whole argument of equity versus equality, right? It's like you give a student, well, it's like they always show a diagram of a person who's like short of stature to like they boost them, they give everybody the same box, as opposed to boosting the student who's short of stature up to the same eye line, and that's kind of the analogy. It felt like it was more an equality approach as opposed to an equity approach. You know what I mean? Like I was like, this is a little bit backwards. Like it's not really up to par with what we know about standards today. And you're kind of having us jump through these hoops where it's like, we're not the same. We're not the same as these other students just because like our experiences in history or whatever, like they know about all that in our applications. Like they got us here for a reason, not only just because like they know we're capable as researchers and students and all that, but they also know that we come from particular backgrounds and circumstances that made us, like, how would you say, like, just different from the average grad student.
Yeah, atypical. Like,
right. Yeah. So it's just
it's
like
the whole point of the diversity aspect of it.
Right. And so, but that did not translate. I don't know if there was some weird disconnect or if it was like a compartmentalization by them to think that once you're in the PhD program that's going to somehow magically make you on the same level. It was stupid. I don't know. I just felt really bitter about that. I'm just like, no. And plus I'm under different stringent conditions just because, at least for me, they had us put through the thesis stuff, and like just the expectations were not made clear at all to my particular cohort, and it was just incredibly frustrating just navigating what they wanted, what they, you know, what they expected, and then being like, well, like it's going to take some time to meet these expectations within reason, but also building onto what I want, which is I want to get the PhD here. So I was trying really hard to integrate the two, which apparently is an impossible task, because it's like by the time I came to defend my thesis, the committee was like very upset with my advisor, and they were like, "This is way too much work for a master's student. This is like a PhD type of thing." And then he was like, "Yeah, that's the goal." And he's like, "Well, that's not what we were expecting." And it's like, well, I mean, you guys asked for this. We're only doing what you asked. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's a very, I was very bitter about it. I'm like, you idiots asked for this. Like, and then you're wondering why, idiots is a strong word, but you can already sense the bitterness of it. Like, which is like, these people asked for us, me and my advisor, to meet these qualifications that the department asked. And we met them, but at what cost? Well, like, we're doing what you told us to do, but you lose out on somebody who could have been a good PhD student. You know what I mean? So it is, I mean, it's, to me, at the end of the day, I was like, it's their loss. Like I did pretty damn good for the department, like above and beyond the regular student stuff. Like, I mean, I helped improve their TA stuff for some time, and like, I was like, yeah, it was, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed doing all that stuff. So it was just like, well, I mean, the way I see it, I mean, you guys kind of let a good student slip through your hands just because of either carelessness, negligence, or just like downright incompetence. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, you saying that, I'm like, all the things you said like seemed like really good contributions. If like a good department or a good school, you know, they would look at all of what you did.
Yeah.
And you did above and beyond from what they expected for the masters, and you did PhD level stuff.
Yeah.
And I would see that, and I would say immediately, oh, then why are you in the master's program? Okay, we're going to move you to the PhD program because you've been doing all this work, and it's great work, and we can see you're motivated.
Yeah.
And you're publishing these papers, right, that are being featured.
Yeah.
So why would they stop you there, right? It doesn't make sense. Like, you helped the teaching in the school. I know you were one of these like teaching associates, right? That you like helped the whole department with like the structure, essentially, the TA structure.
Yeah.
So you really contributed in that way. And then your research, obviously you're contributing above and beyond than what they expect for the master's level.
Yeah.
So what was the problem?
I couldn't pass a test. I couldn't pass a written test, I guess. I don't know.
But I mean, I feel like I
was passing classes, doing really well.
I feel like there's something more there, though. I feel like they had a tainted view. Like, you brought up this really good point about us coming, because we're all from the same fellowship program, which was supposed to be bridging this gap that for, like, you know, diverse students, right? Maybe because of our backgrounds, you know, we didn't have the same preparation, we didn't have the same, you know, we weren't at the same level, right? So it's supposed to bridge us from like undergraduate into like a PhD program and get us the skills that we needed to succeed, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of maybe some preconceived ideas of who we were and that we weren't like incompetent in some way, you know, like that we weren't like really the same level as the other students. Maybe there was some bias towards us. Do you think that could have played a role in why they judged your particular case in the way that they did? And didn't recognize the great things that you contributed?
I think it felt like that. I didn't feel it viciously until literally my last attempt of the exam. That's when I felt I would go up to people asking for help, and I got to really see which people like saw how they saw me. So like the people that were really supportive were the people that had an open door. The people that didn't were the people that slammed the door in front of my face and were like, you didn't pass the exam. Like, and there were the two people that surprised me the most were the people that led the fellowship program. They were the people that slammed the door and said you didn't pass the exam. So it was just like it's almost like they threw the book at you, right?
Like you went in to discuss like possibility of you staying in the program or something like that, and they essentially said, "No, you can't. You didn't pass the test."
Yeah. It was like there's nothing we can do, and I was like, I've seen you guys bend the rules.
They've done more things.
Yeah, they've done more things, and it made me think.
It's never
what's going
like that.
on here? I know. I was just like, there's something going on here. I don't know what's going on here, but like, I don't know if it's because the particular politics of the situation, or if it's just because, I mean politics in the way that's like, I left the fellowship, I would say association, just because I became, like I said, disillusioned with it, and I kind of gave my reasons, but the other coin, or the other side of the coin, is that they said, well, there's the lab that I'm working with and the department don't necessarily like each other. There's a lot of weird politics going on, and so I don't know how much of that bled into like, well, we never see you. I heard this comment a lot. They're like, we never see you in the department. I'm like, I don't work here. I work 2-3 miles away from you guys in a bigger facility, and it's like I'm never gonna see you guys. Like, but they're like, make it out to the colloquiums. I'm like, I TA during the colloquiums. Like, I don't, and it was almost like, it was almost like, because you don't embrace the university in a way that's obvious to us, you don't care. And I'm like, well, I'm doing all the things on paper that show that I do care. And that was my kind of thing. And it was just like, but it ultimately came down to like how they felt, I think, about my qualifications as a student. There was cause like, I did okay as a student. I got really good as classes went on. Like, towards the end, I started getting A's and stuff. So it was like, in the beginning though, it was tough, I will say. Like I did, I think in my first semester, I was in academic probation, but because that took a lot to get used to the rigor of a lot of the classes. And so like, I think that carried a brandishing of sorts. And I heard this from like a professor the year after. He was just like, professors talk amongst each other, not supposed to talk. And I know this because, like I said, I served as a TA. I knew all the ethics and rules. You're not supposed to talk about students' grades. But professors are doing it anyway. They talk about students' grades behind their backs, and they judge a student based on those performances. And not only is that like a sort of ethical violation of the student's privacy, but like on their grade, but it's like just, I don't know, it seems to breed a culture of like judgment, where I think it's unfair. I've even heard one of the people in our particular that's associated with the program, they didn't even take a student on because they made a B in a class. They didn't want them in their cohort because the person had a B. Made them retake the class.
They didn't want them in the research group?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they made a B in the class. And so I know that this stuff holds weight. Like, I know that they do care about the sort of optics of grades, even though grades, I mean, we're talking about what does it mean for a student to have 10% more knowledge in a particular subject between a B and an A? Like, I mean, I don't know. Can you really quantify that? I mean, that's an approximation even. And I mean, it's one thing to just be upfront with the student and say you don't like them, like as a student. And I have heard conversations like that happen with students that were in our fellowship where it was just like, I've heard things, I don't know if this is verbatim, but it's like paraphrasing maybe, of like just hearing the students have been told you don't fit into a theorist mold.
Oh, yeah.
And that's tough to hear. Like if you're somebody who's just like, I want to do it and I know I can, and it's just the amount of time. And, we come from different backgrounds. Like we're saying, most people in our fellowship come from a history that is nonlinear from most students that have had a lot more support systems in place to put them in a situation where they can just come in straight out of undergrad to grad school. So a lot of us come in with already, how would you say, some impedances or whatever, and some slowdowns, I would say. That means that we probably just need a little bit more time than most students.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's something that they understood, or maybe they internalized. So it left, all that culminates in like a general sense of like, you guys don't get it. And it doesn't seem like you understand really what any of this means. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and like I said, I really felt it when I was leaving, because I got to see the people that were the least supportive towards the end were the people that were supposed to be
the most
supportive. Yeah.
The ones that were supposed to be dedicated to the program and understand like the details about the group of people that, I mean,
they're bringing on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tough. Yeah. And I was like,
it's tough to see that, you know?
Yeah. I was like, I don't fuck with y'all anymore. I was like, I was just like, this is I was like a little, I mean, I was going to say like, thank you for the opportunity, but they did not deserve that. Like it was, I do thank them for the opportunity for just bringing me on, but in the sense that, excuse me, sorry, that pizza just, I do thank them for the opportunity, but it just felt so, it's like you didn't support, there was not enough a plan to extensively support the student to success, like to completion. Like it was like even the student that I know that the first student that they had, and I think we know who we're talking about, right? The first fellowship student that they brought on.
The very first student in the whole entire program.
Who transferred into the program.
Oh.
I'm hearing that they just defended.
I don't know if, so I don't know, but I have an idea.
Right.
Yeah.
But I heard that there was multiple times where even for them, they're taking a while. I mean, this person is probably on their 8th year, I think, by this point. And to me, that's just like,
Defended what?
Their PhD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they were 2 years behind me.
Uh-huh.
So I think they're on their 8th year, maybe. And they haven't defended yet. They were supposed to, but
8 years from the transfer into the PhD program, or 8 years from starting from the very beginning.
Because in the original fellowship construction, there was no master's thesis involved. It was just go straight to focus on passing the comps, and then, but they decided to mix things up, I guess, add a little spice to it. So they made students do the thesis, which is, in hindsight, really stupid. But I don't know. It's like even that student who they lauded as a success, they're having trouble supporting them through the program and having it be an actual success. When they first interviewed me for the fellowship, this particular school, I asked them, how successful is your program? Like, I flat out was just like, I don't know, like, what are the statistics? Like, do you guys actually support your students? And they're like, well, we did have one student who transferred to a PhD program, so we would say it's a success. And we had a student that transferred into our PhD program successfully. And I was like, okay, this is pretty promising. But in retrospect, like, I think it made more sense to, like, I mean, I knew going in, like, it wasn't necessarily a guaranteed towards PhD, but I knew at the very least that they help students get a master's, I guess, which is like the goal, in essence. But to me, it was the PhD. I generally was asking about how much do y'all help the students actually get from this point to bridge them into a PhD program successfully. I mean, they're not going to get the PhD for you, but it's like...
but also support you throughout the journey of the PhD. Like you said, like the 2 years is not enough time to really get you caught up to be at the same level. Like there's a lot of other supports that you're going to need along the way throughout the PhD as well.
Yeah.
Like 2 years is not enough to like catch up on how many years you're behind, you know?
Yeah.
For different reasons.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of and they expected students to do research on top of that. I mean, forget it. Like it's like you're gonna set like, it's silly. The construction of it was like, I don't know, short-sighted. I think in its inception, I don't think they really had a grasp of it. I generally had too much trust in the construction of it and how they were doing it. So yeah, like I said, there was a lot of bitterness because it's almost like I trusted them to guide me appropriately through this or to navigate me through this. And there was little to none of that. So it felt, but by the time I finished my master's in 2020, it was around the time that they were like throwing the book at me and being like, you didn't pass, so bye-bye. And it was just kind of like, well, screw you guys too. I'm going home. Like, I'm just getting out of here. Like, you guys suck for like just not really being that understanding or supportive. Like, I don't know. I'm going off of your advice. I'm doing all this, and it was like I said, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So, it's I don't know what it's going to be like at other places, but like I said, I imagine if I am in this situation where I have to go back for whatever reason, I don't know. I hope it's not the case, but if it is, then I know what to look for. I know the signs. And hopefully, first time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. So if the second time I get burned again, that's my bad. But, you know what I mean?
Still shame on them, though.
Yeah, it's still shame on them. It's always shame on them. They should know better.
I mean, the first time is shame on them, but the second time is also if they burn me again, then it is for sure. Maybe it's an in-between thing, but a lot of it is like now on me to really, advocate for myself and vet the school for like, you're getting a pretty decent researcher. You're getting somebody who's really qualified. More than qualified to be in your program. So, yeah. I mean, that's the way I see it. But.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. It is tough.
Yeah, but...
how do you feel about it? Like
about what you said? Or about what?
Just in general. Like, how do you feel? Like, your feelings about... Yeah, your feelings about the program, maybe about what I said, maybe a little bit about like where you feel like your feelings are headed towards that.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to a lot of the things you're talking about. I think we're pretty similarly minded there. I think it's a pretty serious criticism and definitely deserved that the program is not very well integrated. I feel like a second-class citizen.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so fucked up. It's so fucked up.
Like literally, when I see certain people on campus, I take the long way around. Yeah. I'm like, I see them, and I'm like, oh fuck this, and I'm just like, I walk a football field distance away from them. You can't pay me enough to be around them. Yeah. Anyways, I'm hinting at some drama. I mean, it's just certain people embody a lot of the things that you're talking about. For me, some of that is like perhaps unfair, but a lot of it I've heard from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, same here. Like I usually give the benefit of the doubt, but if I hear it, if that corroborates what other people have told me is their experience, where I'm like, this is not really fair to the. I don't know. Nobody even a professional setting should really be that disparaging to students. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just. Whew, I mean,
that's controlled rage, folks. All that sighing you're hearing when I'm doing it too is like I'm just I'm a kettle that's letting some titrating it slowly. It's a balloon that's under a lot of pressure. That's how it feels like.
I mean, I feel like that. I'm like, I'm gonna go burn the building down tomorrow.
No, but I you know what I mean. Like a lot of us feel like this sort of quiet, like just rage of just feeling like like you're saying, second class citizens of not feeling like the department really it's fucked. I mean, luckily for me, I didn't feel that way in my lab where I was. I felt the only one that really ever made me feel that way was when my advisor would talk to me about the department, and he's like, you know how they treat you, man, like blah blah blah. He was always on my side, but he also trusted the institute. He deferred a lot to the department because he in some way was also treated as a second class citizen. Yeah. So it was. I mean, it's the
tough. Politics, right? For him too, he was probably lower tier than them for some reason, right?
Yeah, because he's research and
not
he doesn't have a seat at the table.
Yeah,
at the high table for
snooty.
It is really ridiculous, and I'm sure he would have advocated if he did. I mean, he did support me in a lot of ways. I have heard some lab professors in particular, the institution that I worked for, a sister institution for the department, or the school, I should say. They, I have heard some professors that have advocated for certain students to like push through, but they took more of a I don't know why. Maybe because the professor really felt like this was worth pushing through. There's two students that I can think about that worked at the lab that I worked at that I heard didn't pass on their attempts but were pushed through anyway. So I don't know. Like I said, at the end of the day, it still feel they weren't fellowship students. Let's just say that. So,
see, but then that's a double. It doesn't. Why are some students allowed to just push through? Mm-hmm. And then others not? It's just like, if you're going to let some, then everyone should just be able to push through. So you should just remove this exam.
There should be more transparency on what, either more avenues that are more transparent of how students can push through. Like, I would have thought that, looking, like if somebody put my CV on their table and be like, would you say that the student deserves to be in your PhD program? I think a lot of them would say, yeah, like we feel that way. But I think some of it has to do definitely with the fellowship stuff. Maybe the history of like the impression that I think some students give. Like I said, and it's not even that there's anything wrong with their qualities as a student. Sometimes I've literally heard professors say, you don't really fit as a certain particular type of researcher or whatever that looks like in their conception, so, and these are people that I thought were advocates or would consider part of the overall supportive umbrella, but it's tough.
I mean, at first I feel like they're trying to push me away from doing theory because I hadn't passed the qualification exam.
Yeah. But then you passed.
And then I passed, and the instant I passed and the score that I got, that was when I got accommodations to get more time to take it and everything.
Oh, interesting.
So I was able to do better on it.
Uh-huh.
And then immediately it was like a switch clicked, and they're like, oh, yeah, of course, you should be talking to this professor. Yeah, you should definitely, you can do theory. And it was very weird because it's just like overnight. One night was like trying to push me towards something else.
Yeah.
And then the next day after the results came out, it was like, yeah, you should be going to the theory side,
Ridiculous.
And like, what changed about me? Yeah. Literally nothing changed. I was still the same person. And I've been told, like in my undergraduate, that I couldn't be a theory student. Like I shouldn't have been a theory student because of my grades.
Yeah.
But the reason my grades were the way they are is a history situation, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot of other situations going on that caused, my grades to suffer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it didn't mean that I couldn't be a theorist. It doesn't mean I can't do research, right? It's just like
it's just ridiculous.
It's just
It's
they're
absurd.
yeah. I mean, it's not extending empathy to people, not understanding
Yeah.
diversity in general. These people who
Yeah, what
run the
that means.
diversity program, they don't even understand what diversity means.
Right. They don't understand what I know, because look, they trained me as a graduate in my graduate assistantship for the department in improving the teaching assistantship stuff. They trained me for a year about what all that means, and I was like, it gave language to what the department was doing wrong, and I was like, yeah, I see a lot of the stuff that case studies of schools that say they do diversity stuff, but it's like I said, it's like they're interpreting it incorrectly. It's the equity versus equality stuff. It's like not really understanding. It's like you're using metrics to justify marginalization, to justify rationalizing why certain students aren't cut out. Like if you don't pass the exam, well, you're just not cut out for it. You know what I mean? But it's like, no, like you're still functioning. Students like that are still functioning off of histories, unless you give them like support where they can be put in a position where you as an institution can guide them so that they can reach their goals and not meet seemingly arbitrary checkpoints and goals that don't do anything but like either supplement your numbers or like improve your metrics. Like, I don't know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's backwards.
Yeah.
And it's stupid. That's why I'm just like, I'm out of here. Like a lot of it at the end, at the last year was just like, I don't know if I really want to be here anymore. So
Yeah,
but
I mean,
if you make it through, you make it through. Like, you're just like, I know I know if I make it through, I'm going to just power through it. But when you're on the other side of it, where you're just like, I don't know if I really want to stick around, and they're making me jump through these hoops, it just doesn't feel like it's worth it, But I tell people, if you can jump through the hoop, and if you've made it through the hoop, then just fucking try to stick it out,
I mean, it frustrates me, and I'm always thinking maybe I should just leave this place. I can't take this culture anymore. It's so against my philosophy.
Yeah.
It's like just seems so wrong and so counterintuitive. It's like, to me, it's the wrong way of growing a nation of like scientists and physicists. Like, why are we going it? Why do we make it so difficult for people to study physics? It's like, we need physicists to do a large variety of jobs.
Yes.
So like, why are we making it so hard for these people who are interested in it?
Yeah.
To learn, right? So to me, it's like, this doesn't make sense.
But I think they need somebody who can pass their silly little tests. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for you, where it's like you had the wherewithal to like power through their BS and just come out of it being like, I passed your test, now that you see me as a valid person, then like, then I have these critiques, like, of how you do things.
Well, I'm staying in this program because I want to change it. And that's what I'm trying to do, right? Yeah. Like, that's the only reason, one of the motivators of me staying here. I think it's BS, but I'm like, if I can stay here
change
and make it
a little bit,
and make it better for the next cohort of people that come in, I will feel good about that, right?
Yeah, we need people like that. I keep telling people like that do decide to like power through it, or that power through it, that just like try to make some kind of lasting impact or some kind of incremental like change, because you gotta really, the academics are they're already a highly filtered and highly selected type of people. Like, they're, you know what I mean? Like, they're already the cream of the crop, quote unquote. They're already very like qualified people to be teaching. It's just that they lack in certain, like, I think maybe social proclivities, maybe, or maybe they weren't they don't understand a lot about different, like, either socioeconomic classes. Like, I don't know that many. I only know a handful of, maybe I can only count on one hand the professors that I know that really came from terrible backgrounds. Like, and I mean terrible in the sense that, like, a lot of instability. So, and those are the ones that are usually really supportive.
Yeah.
And understand that it's not just a metrics thing. It's like there's some humanity to it, and supporting students that want to be scientists and whatever, like physicists, you know, that want to be this particular branch of a researcher and like be good at it, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, not enough understanding.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's why, you know, the people select for those that are like them. That's why the culture's a little bit stagnant, because that's who they select for, right? So we have to try to find a way to open space, because there are other brilliant people that would make great professors, be more understanding, be more empathetic.
Yeah.
That need a space, right, to exist in the academic world.
Yeah, I was kind of actually, this one professor that they hired recently, he was a younger guy. I was like, oh, he's young, like, so he gets it. But no, he did not get it. He was a huge a-hole. I'm not even going to say who it is. But, like, he was a huge a-hole. And I was like, because I taught for him, he would, like, disparage the students all the time. Like, I'm talking, like, students that, if you're a teacher and you're doing teaching as a service, like, to the students, why are you talking shit about them? Why are you, like, it lets me see how you see not only them as students, but also, like, how you look at your other fellow students that are under you, like your underlings, whatever. Like the either the undergrads or even the graduate students, like, there's a certain hierarchy and impression in your mind that you can treat people this way, when it's like, no, like no. This is, if anything, departments or academia should try to be more horizontal as opposed to vertical, like,
yes,
like with the hierarchies of, like, you know, we have, yes, like, I get why you structure, like, how would you say, I get why you structure certifications, right? Bachelor's, okay, it tells me that you have this level of general knowledge. Okay, fine. Master's, I get that you have this level of general knowledge. Okay, PhD, it tells me that you're really damn good at one thing. You know, like, you're really highly specialized in this one thing. I get all that. But when you have a whole organization or whatever in your department, you can't be treating people like second-class citizens. You know, you can't create a culture of us versus them, and even then, like, have, like, this sort of this segregation de facto of just, like, those students are pet projects, or, like, you know, I not jokingly, but I did tell this to someone that it was applying to grad school recently, that was just like, you know, because they're like, wow, I can't believe you didn't get into Boulder. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I was like, there's only so many room for students like me. Like, this is a highly selective school. You know, my CV is good, but, like, even for them, like, I'm sure that they look at my application and are like, oh, this person was all they see is that this person was in grad school for 5 years and didn't get a PhD. That's all they're going to see. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to see the bullshit that I slogged through to even get to that point of, like, why that happened. They're not going to see that. Their essays don't capture that, like, at all. Like, they have certain essays that whatever. You guys know what it's like. But yeah, it's such a, I'm like, yeah, they only have so many room for students like us. And I was like, they're not going to, you know, they like to say that they make certain accommodations, but, you know, the people that have made it through, even then they say it's bullshit, and, like, it's not really, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of reform. You have to have, like, legitimate allies. which I think in the department needs basically more people that pass through or meet their metrics to have a voice. You know what I'm saying? That they need to see you as a valid student in whatever they're valid in the sense that you qualify, you meet their qualifications. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. I mean, it just always pisses me off because I'm like, just because you said they have more knowledge in that subject doesn't make them better than the people who have less knowledge. If anything, you have more knowledge. You have the responsibility to bring the people with less knowledge up to the same level as you, not treat them like second-class citizens, you know? And what's frustrating is that I wish there was more transparency. Like, I wish we were actual community, like a community of people. One has less knowledge, one has more knowledge, but we discuss like policies together. We say, okay, this is what we need. Oh, that's what you need. Okay, so how can we like come up with a policy that's going to meet all of our needs? Because we're a community. We should be working with each other, not I'm your slave.
Right. No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels incredibly combative. Like it's weird because I found the same kind of environment with the post office. It's so weird.
It's just, is everything set up that way?
No, it's not. But the thing is, like, the post office, I called it the manglement because, you know, management manglement. They just mangle things up. Like, I'm like, this can be done so much easier if you listen to the fucking workers because, like, we know how the day-to-day works. In fact, we said we can figure this out without silly management. Like, and it's just, it created more headaches when the boss, quote unquote, or whatever, would just like come in and rile everything up and just try to have metrics that we would all have to meet for the day. Like, and it's just like, sometimes people, like, for instance, like, I'm giving you an example of like, sometimes you would, if you couldn't deliver something, you bring it back. If the market is like not delivered, they would get mad at the higher ups would be like, you're not supposed to bring back stuff to the office and mark it undeliverable at the office. For whatever reason, they're like, you have to go out there and do it there. But it's like, when you're trying to meet certain timetables, you don't really, if you can't deliver something, you pass by, you're just like, all right, fuck it, I'm just gonna drive by to the next address. Like, I'm not gonna stop, park my car, boom, 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 get this in, and then like go on to the next thing, because you're gonna have a number of those where you can't do that. You can't deliver them. But and then the criticism you're gonna get is, why did you take so long? What happened? And it's like all this other stuff of like, you know, it's more easy if I just streamline the process for myself for me to execute judgment so that I can do what's best for me. And then, you know, I'm here. I delivered as much as I could, you know, and in the analogy of the grad school, it's like, you know, I'm going to try to meet those expectations in the way I see fit, kind of thing, you know. And it seems to me like the department kind of mangles things up and creates these obstacles that seem rather arbitrary, and it seems more like statistics gathering rather than like understanding the humans behind those statistics. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you need people to kind of go in there and just be like, why are you even doing this? Like, what is the utility in having this? Are you serving the students? Who are you serving? Are you serving your higher ups that are demanding that you give them metrics for, like, you know, is the degree completion a metric of success? Is it like, what are your metrics? Like, what are you actually doing? You know, it seems like it needs a restructuring and a rewiring. And I get that professors are so, at the end of these people that come and help us are tied almost, you know what I mean? Like, because they have other duties that they have to perform. And then at the end of the day, they maybe come in and like have a chit chat, try to make us feel better a little bit. And then they go on with the rest of their day. Seems like very little is done to really put a seat, give us a meaningful like seat at the table where we have an actual lasting impact. It wasn't until the end of my TA assistantship thing that I was like, I mean, I got it because I was like, I do want to change the culture of teaching here. I want to improve not only the students, the TA's general like sense of like responsibility in being a good TA and how they approach teaching, but also have some of that culture ingrained in them when and if they become professors. Like I want them to have the same sense of like duty of like service. I'm me as a professor, or teacher, I'm doing this as a service to the student. I'm at the end of the day, I am in service to the other students. Like it can be grad students. You can have that sense of like, how would you say, of duty to the people. Like, I think the way I see it now is very, like you're saying, it's kind of walled off. It's like there is no respect for the student. You know, even if we're not talking people in our fellowship, like, you know, it's I've seen people that have kids, and like they're like, yeah, I have a kid and I'm here and I'm taking classes. They're like, sucks to be you kind of thing, you know. Like it's kind of like this. It's fucked. Like it's too combative. It's not really that understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, the microcosm of this I saw when there was like a hurricane, and the professors didn't want to extend the homework because they were like, well, if we extend the homework, then we're going to get behind on the semester. So just turn in what you got. And it was just like that's all. We're doing homework by candlelight. What do you mean? Like, it's just like we don't have internet right now. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, we lost power for a long time too.
For like a week.
I think we slept in the building, like in an
Shit.
office on the ground, because it was so hot and we didn't have like we didn't have anything for electricity for like 2 weeks here. Cause
Yeah, I know. And then
because all the trees are here, all the power lines like fell over. And they're like, gotta bring in the homework, so we're sleeping in the floor on. It's like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no humanity to it where it's just like, but you know what I mean? Like, they're just like, the show must go on. And it's like, this is, no. Like, when I was a TA and there were students where, you know, there were circumstances that were beyond their control, I would be understanding. I'm like, who gives a fuck about, you know, the curriculum? I'm going to have to shift my curriculum. Who cares? Like, sure, I have to now condense the lab down to, like, certain essences of what's going to be I feel the student needs to cover. I'm not going to hold it against them. Like, how is that fair to them?
yeah.
Like, I don't know. But I feel like I really get the sense that from what I've seen, professors in the department did not care. Like, generally speaking, like, didn't care if there was a hurricane or some life altering event happening. Didn't matter to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'm coming to appreciate from this conversation is just how much I personally value like soft skills, I guess, like in terms of like being able to empathize with your students and just in general, right? You could apply to the post office, right?
Yeah.
And just like if there's a sliding scale of just like, you know, a lot of these people, at least in academia, are selected based upon their competence in like, you know, whatever that is they're studying. I don't think there's there's very little consideration in terms of like how supportive is that person, right? Because it's hard. It's like we don't have a system of like quantifying that other than just like, oh, do they seem like all right?
Yeah. Well, nowadays they have a structure of general feedback for your TAs, at least the ones that, like when I was doing teaching portfolios, it was your teaching portfolio they encouraged that you had student feedback, but you were you could be super selective. And that's when faculty usually gets super merciful at the students, like just begging them, can you please do a review, please? Just because they know that if they're planning to go to be hired as a faculty, like obviously you want to pick the students that really look favorably upon you and all that. They need that. So maybe in some ways students need to be more critically honest. But then I don't know. I've seen the professor that I'm saying was kind of a big a-hole. I've seen his demeanor change a couple weeks leading up to those feedback things, where it's like, oh, you're expecting the students to just forget that you were just bullying
The
them.
whole semester of them being bullied, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and just being called idiots and stuff. It's fucked. It's like, dude, I don't know. There does need to be a culture change in physics. I don't think that's like a how would you say a controversial thing to say. I hope not.
I don't think it's controversial.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is, but I think part of the problem I see with the culture is just that it's just kind of tacitly accepted by a lot of people. Like they just kind of like we spend a lot of time talking about the quals, right? And just like in general, like our experience is having to jump through hoop after hoop, right? A lot of people in my circles, right, is just like they just accept that for what it is. You know,
right.
It's like, oh, here's a hoop. I guess I'll jump through it. You know, oh, okay, now I'm through it. Cool. Let's just keep going. And there's no type of like critical thinking like we're doing here right now about like, why the fuck did I have to jump through that hoop? Like, what was the point of that? Like, what does it mean? What does it tell? What does it say about that person's values that they put that hoop there? You know, and just so on, right? So like, I don't think it's controversial to talk about like needing a culture shift, but at the same time, I think there needs to be like more awareness around like the specifics of just like what exactly is it that needs to be changed in the culture.
Yeah.
So what does need to be? I guess like if you're gonna ask for solutions, I can think of some. You know, one of them is being like obviously changing the culture from the ground up, which is like your peers. Like that's one way I approached it. I was like, well, I can't change the professor's mind. There's nothing that I can do to really get them to budge, because, you know, they're interpreting the evidence wrong. Unless I were to give like a fucking TED talk and just be like, here's the data. Well, here's how you're interpreting it incorrectly.
Well, also because of the power structure, right? Because like you said, it's a power over vertical structure. Like for you to have to like plead your case to the power above, it's just like they always have the option of just saying, well, too bad, you know? They don't have to acknowledge it.
And then cutting you out because you're trying to rustle the feather.
Yeah. Shift things around. Yeah.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt though. I just felt
but I mean like culture. I mean, there's the solution. One solution that takes a long time, but I think is probably the best long-term solution is shifting the culture, which I think is happening, but I think some people want a faster rate of change. I think that only happens with like certain professors that have to come into actual positions of power. And there are certain advocates that I can see why certain departments don't want people like that, because they associate a certain quality of student with maybe what we are advocating for.
And what is that? What is that quality,
of student?
Yeah. And what are we advocating for?
Well, we're advocating for more students across different backgrounds, across different histories, that have different upbringings and have like there's more variety, and as opposed to having some students that are, not only, I mean, there's obviously like the sense that most departments will say, I mean, look at our departments, they're widely multicultural, and they wouldn't be wrong in that, but and that's great. But what I'm saying is like, they also pick the students that are literally the best in their wherever they're coming from. They're great students. They're not going to have a hard time. They're usually from Europe. They have their equivalent of our stuff is like, you know, their bachelor's is our master's. They're so, to them this is really easy.
I mean, and their K through 12 schooling is a lot. I mean, I think they teach way better problem-solving skills in the United States. Right,
and I'm saying that like the U.S. and I kind of want to zoom in on like how the U.S. handles, like how we handle diversity, I guess, is like, you know, we're structurally different than nations that are more like, yeah, you're plucking students from different nations, and yes, you are having a multicultural environment, but you're not kind of, how do I say this? You're not picking students at least in America, it's very different backgrounds and stuff, but the students that you're picking, socioeconomic backgrounds is also a factor. Like, I've never heard of a poor European student that had to come here. A lot of them come from wealthy backgrounds. I mean, it is expensive for them, granted. Like, I have heard those complaints that it's really expensive for them, and that is tough, like, I will say, compared to American students. And they often look at American students and be like, you guys don't even get to pay that much. And it's like, granted, but our schooling sucks. So, like, we have different barriers that we have to go through. Mostly the ones that are like, we have to prove ourselves more intellectually than the other students. There are those students that are, I mean, I'm not saying that all students are dumb or they come, they automatically means that they had a bad education, but, the quality of American students is notoriously like lower standard than European ones. I don't think that's like, I don't know if that's controversial to say, but that's something that some schools should take into consideration. Like, if you're going to get American students, make sure that you really are trying to support them, And that's a complaint that I've heard a bunch. Like, most schools just outsource to the best European students, like, because it's easier that way. You produce good quality students, and you get to say all these nice things about how you support diversity and stuff without really, like, having somebody that's challenging your institution to be more, how would you say, more inclusive in ways that are like, to people of different socioeconomic backgrounds,
Yeah, I mean, that brings up, I mean, to me, when you say challenge, I'm like, yeah, they should be taking up that challenge, because, like, in that, the university is going to grow to be stronger and better, right? They're going to learn how, I mean, it's going to just bring this whole new world of teaching, right? And understanding, like, how do I teach the material to, like, a variety of people who have, like, these large variety of difference in background and knowledge coming here. So they're going to really hone in on all of these new techniques that they didn't have to before.
Yeah.
They're going to grow, I guess, in empathy as well, right? Which people might think is, what's the point? I mean, is that necessary in physics? Is that necessary in science? But I think it is. I mean, we're all humans, right? So I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like I don't understand why that isn't something that universities want to do. Like, why don't they want to take a challenge where it's going to help them grow?
I think we talked about this in that teaching assistant. Did you ever take that teaching assistantship thing?
I didn't, because I asked you and you said, it's a ton of time, and I want to do it at some point, but just because
it's a good, if you have time, do it.
I'm still trying to get my kind of schedule in order, but then I do want to do it at some point.
We talked about this. We talked about why departments and whatever have a hard time doing that. And the answer is that they're trying to meet certain metrics from higher ups. Like, a lot of them have to meet certain criteria, like not only for federal funding, but also like how they determine success. So, like, a good example of this is I interviewed with Long Beach, and they told me that one of the biggest things, the biggest thing they told me was like, do you think you can finish the master's in 2 years? And I was like, yeah. And then they're like, because I mean, and they're like, and I mean, we're really serious. Like, we don't have any PhD. Like, you have to finish in 2 years. I was like, well, I mean, I'd have to find the right program, and yeah, but I'm pretty sure I could. And then they were just like, okay, all right, well, we'll think about it, like that kind of thing. And like, and then I didn't get the offer, but they were like, I followed up with them. I was like, what was it? And they're like, well, we wanted to pick a candidate that we were pretty sure they could finish in 2 years. So that to me showed me that it's like, okay, they're really, really, really harping on metrics. Like if this is a thing for success, if this is how they're measuring success of the program, then that is something they're looking for. And they were unsure about my my ability to do that, because I think my hesitation with being like, well, I mean, maybe, yeah, like it depends. Which fair, like, because I wasn't sure. I'm like, it really depends on the project. But I guess they must have had somebody that had more maybe confidence in themselves. I don't know. But that's sort of a microcosm of the larger scheme of what universities generally try to do. Like, at least in our program, the success of the fellowship is measured by how many master's degrees it produces. Mm-hmm. And as far as they're concerned, if you do it in this amount of time, boom, that means we're successful. So it's like it's statistics. It's for them to make themselves look good, and then like it takes a lot of work to shake those things up. You know, you really have to find somebody that's willing to be focused on one thing, to move the needle on one thing. So it's like if you're going to make a solution on how to shift the culture, like the culture comes with us. Like, good luck convincing fucking professors to change their mind about how they feel, because I mean they have their own inoculation of what they think stuff means, and so like you can only say so many things before you're talking to a wall, you know. And it's like, at least that's my interpretation. The best thing you can do is like try to meet them in the middle. Like the students should centralize and like unionize, and then try to converge on one singular goal.
Mm-hmm. Rise of the proletariat.
Yeah.
No, but,
well, yeah, like you know, disband if you're trying to get rid of the quals or transform it in a way that's like where you do have compromise. That's a good way to do it. Like just be like, you know, let's change it to where, like you're saying, it's.
Yeah, well, there is a potential reform occurring right now. What's frustrating is that.
What's the pushback?
The faculty. This is not even transparent to the graduate students. Graduate students know through the grapevine. They've heard like bits and pieces from different professors, like advisors they work with, right? So it's like one thing that frustrates me is like we technically have not even been included at all in this conversation, right? There's no transparency, and there should be, but it seems like there's been for like a month or so now. They're having meetings to discuss like potential reform, and I guess they haven't come to a consensus yet.
Right. And I hate to cut you off here, but running low on battery, so I'll check in. This might be a good time to start wrapping things up.
Okay, yeah, sure.
How are you guys feeling? Does that sound good, or should we start like closing things out? Because it could.
How much more time we got? It depends on like.
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
But it looks like it's at 0. It could die at any moment. But I could replace the batteries and we could keep going. But it seems like it might be a good place to start rounding out. I don't know.
Okay, sure.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Whatever you want.
You guys tell me.
Let's try wrapping it up.
Okay.
So there are solutions.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working. I think that our fellowship program itself has been like actually kind of pushing hard on, and there have been some positive things happening in the department. One being this nonviolent communication kind of class that's been going on, and then second, this kind of discussion about a reform on the qualification exam. But
we'll see where it
we'll
goes.
see where it goes. Yeah.
It's only a start, though.
It's only a little start.
It's good. I'm happy that
it's a positive thing to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
To see any change whatsoever is good, but it's like watching a fucking ice. It's so glacially slow that it's just like, oh my god. If this is the pace that things are changing, it's just like I don't know if I'll be able to. I don't know if I have the patience to like see it through. You know.
Yeah.
But gonna keep fighting.
Well, that's good, man. That's good. Well, thank you all for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. It was great chatting. I don't know. Is there anything you want to plug? I don't know if
check out the Eigenbros. We'll probably be posting stuff sporadically. and yeah, just follow us there on the socials. Terrence does manage the socials, so if you're going to get mad at anybody for posting anything, it's him. Just disclaimer. And yeah, so and I guess you can find me through the grapevine. There's a Discord, so if you can pay like $1 and you can reach me out there if you want to have a mano conversation or whatever, like any kind of conversation. You can reach me there on my Discord or our Discord.
All right, sorry for the abrupt cutoff, but as was mentioned, the battery on our recording equipment died, so it'll have to be me to round out the outro. Thanks again to Juan for coming on the podcast. Everything he was mentioning at the end, all the links will be provided in the show notes, so feel free to check them out on YouTube and Patreon, and they have a website. And yeah, so thanks again for him coming on. We really appreciate it. And if you guys enjoyed today's interview, show him some love and encourage him to come on again. So, hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.